And hello there. Welcome back to Brian Keene's Secret Histories. I am, of course, Brian Keene. And if you are just tuning in for the first time, what we do is we sit on the floor in my office and we talk about my books in chronological order, meaning the order they were written and published. And I talk about where I got the idea and what went into the creation of it and what, if anything, it did for my career or my place in the industry or reader reactions, things of that nature. Today, as you can see, we're going to talk about Tequila's Sunrise. But to talk about Tequila's Sunrise, we have to first talk about a book by another author. One of my favorite authors, also a dear, dear friend, a mentor to me, someone who I would not have a career without his friendship and guidance and tutelage, and that is Jack Ketchum. Now, you might know Jack Ketchum's name as one of the undisputed titans of what is now called extreme horror. If there is an extreme horror Mount Rushmore, Jack Ketchum's name or face would certainly be on it. But this book by him is a little different. And I guess most of the public knows now. Jack Ketchum was a pseudonym. His real name was Dallas Mare. So I'm going to refer to my friend as Dallas. And yes, that is who my cat is named after. Dallas was a lover of cats, as am I. This is called The Transformed Mouse. It was published by Biting Dog Press, who also did my own book, The Resurrection and the Life, which you may have seen in an earlier video. And this was a very, very different sort of book for Dallas. As you can see, it's a 2nd century parable that he repurposed and retold. It is not extreme horror at all. It's fantasy. Nancy Collins provides the introduction. George Walker, who did those woodcuts for The Resurrection and the Life, which, again, you can see in the previous Secret Histories video for that book, also does the woodcuts for this book. Now, I was a fan of Dallas's work as a young man. I discovered him and Lehman around the same time. And over the years, when I started writing, I not only was a fan, Dallas and I became really, really tight friends. If you have watched the Secret Histories video for The Rising, or if you ever listen to the Horror Show with Brian Keene, then you know that it was Dallas who negotiated my publishing contract for The Rising. What a lot of people don't know is before he was Jack Ketchum, he was a literary agent for some big names. Philip K. Dick, Henry S. Miller, all sorts of other people. He knew his way around a contract. But what I marveled at as a reader and as a friend was that he wrote this, because it was such a departure from anything he'd ever done before. And I loved it. It was inspiring. Probably one of the biggest, most instantaneous moments of inspiration I've ever had upon reading a book, where I finished the book and I was like, God damn, I need to do that. And so I did. And that book was Tequila's Sunrise. A definite departure for what I was known for at the time, which, let's be honest, was 99.9% horror fiction and one crime novel with some supernatural undertones. This was a fantasy set in the Aztec Empire, and a young boy named Chalco. Excuse me, I got the hiccups while we're recording this. A young boy named Chalco. Now, at this point in my career, the Labyrinth Mythos was fully fleshed in my head. My readers were starting to figure it out. there were breadcrumbs here and there. But this was the first book to really solidify what was going on, what it actually was, how all these things were interconnected. So first, let's take a look at the lettered edition. That is an actual arrowhead, spearhead, and there's another one here inside the book. Snakeskin binding. And let's pull this to get it out. Beautiful tray case. Beautiful end papers. I mean, this was a gorgeous book. 26 lettereds, cute little worm. It was signed by me and Alex McVeigh, who did the art. To this day, this remains one of my favorite book covers of my work. In fact, if gun to my head, Brian picked the favorite cover ever from one of your books, I'm going to really seriously go with Alex McVeigh's Tequila Sunrise. And I have been blessed with wonderful cover artists, folks. Wonderful cover artists. Gax covered a 4x4 is tattooed on my back, as we talked about in the Secret Histories episode of 4x4. But this was my favorite because never has an artist captured exactly what I wanted to go for with the book. Let's look here. Here we have, Doors in the Labyrinth with Chalco facing them. Here we have The Lost Level, which was not something that my readers knew existed yet. And we have, this darkness with the eyes. We don't know if that's Hylenius or if it's Ob or possibly Nodens. Here we have, of course, the Earthworm God's World. And again, I don't know that the video is going to show it, but this is thick paper. You could kill somebody with that. You could cut their throat with that. Bloodletting Press published this, one of my favorite small press publishers to work with. I wish that they still did stuff like this. Larry Roberts was just wonderful, just a consummate professional. And Larry's still around, but he doesn't publish stuff like this anymore. He does nonfiction, occult nonfiction, particularly really hard to find books. But yeah, Larry was great. The book came out in 2007, and basically it was me inspired by the Transformed Mouse, and it's, as I said, my reader's first true revelation of the Labyrinth Mythos and how everything ties together. Chalco, as we now know from my novel, The Seven, The Labyrinth Book 1, he was supposed to be one of the seven. His bloodline was supposed to be one of them, but he was removed from reality in this book. Amun basically fucked up, made a mistake, and nearly screwed the pooch for all of existence. All of that taking place in this book. Of course, readers wouldn't understand the full weight of it until The Seven was published, a decade and change later. Really, really, really pleased with this story, pleased with how readers received it at the time. There was just enough horror and fan service there that people were it was the first time I really got a sense that my readers were willing to go with me. You know what I mean? No matter what I was writing about, they were willing to come along for the ride. And as a writer, that is an amazing feeling. It is very freeing. It is very rewarding. You can trust your muse a lot more if you know your readers are going to trust it too. This was the Bloodletting Press limited edition, signed limited edition, very similar to the lettered, different end papers, different signature sheets, but same content inside other than that. And then, of course, Deadite Press, paperback. This recently went out of print, and I will be reprinting it sometime later this year, 2025, through my own Manhattan on Mars press. So look for that when it comes out. And that is Tequila Sunrise. I hear a clicking sound in the distance. I live right along the banks of the Susquehanna River. And yeah, that's odd. I hear a click, 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 which must mean that in our next installment, we're going to talk about Clickers 2 by myself and my dear friend, J.F. Gonzalez. I'll warn you in advance, that is probably going to be a long video because I have a lot to say about it. Thank you so much for watching and for supporting this series and buying my books, reading my books. I appreciate each and every one of you. We'll see you soon. Peace.